Yo, welcome back to Good Game Reviews. Here to do another game review. Um, week one is finally in the books. Football is back. Games are still going on. Games are gonna keep going on. We got some more games for tonight. I'm excited to watch. I can't believe I'm even saying this, but I'm excited to watch the Tampa Bay Saints games. Should be a high scoring game. But anyway, let's get back to the Patriots. And with week one in the books, we have the final score 21-11. Patriots win. Um, Pretty much around the score where I expected. I think I predicted 28-21. Pretty much Patriots winning by at least a touchdown. It was a little bit more than that, but uh, pretty much what I expected. In truth, the Patriots could have scored a lot more. Um, had they been on page with a couple of offensive drives. You had the N'Keal Harry fumble, which I'll get into later on. But overall, it was good. It was a good showing. It was, pretty much what everybody expected was going to happen in terms of play calling. Um, and speaking of the play calling, what they cooked up for Cam Newton was, I mean, it was just a sight to watch, and the just the feeling that you get to see Cam Newton once again on the field. It feels good to see him, and it feels good to see him succeed. And speaking of Cam Newton, I'm gonna go ahead and put him in my good column. I like to start with the good, the bad, um, all of that. So we're gonna kick it off with the good. And first off, let's talk about the quarterback. Let's talk about Cam Newton. Um, he was 15 for 19, 155 passing yards, um, zero touchdowns as far as passing, but he had two touchdowns running the ball. Had a pass rating of 100.7. He did his job. He did what he was supposed to do. Um, I mean, we didn't expect him to have like a big breakout game. I know there's probably some people who did expect him to throw for like 200 and run for 100, or throw for 300 and run for 100. I wasn't really expecting like any like big numbers out of Cam. I knew he was pretty much gonna deliver. And he did what he had to do. He had as far as just like a balanced game, he had 75 yards running the ball, and against this Miami defense, which surprisingly was pretty good in terms of stopping the run and stopping the pass. There was a time where they had kept the Patriots from I'm trying to find a word for it, but as far as three and outs, thank you. It was three straight three and outs that they forced the Patriots in, and I mean, you would if you would have told me that that the Dolphins defense was going to be able to do that. I mean, you would have got me. If we were betting, I would have lost that bet. But Cam Newton, it feels good to see him. It feels good to see him, and it feels good to see him on our team. I can say this with confidence. I'd rather have him with me than against me. Um, as far as everybody else goes, you have the running game, which was pretty balanced. I like to say. Of course, Cam Newton, led in terms of rushing. He was the leading rusher of the game, but it was pretty balanced throughout the game. A lot of it was a couple of handoffs to Sony, a couple of handoffs to J.J. Taylor, which was a pleasant surprise to see. I mean, he had about four carries, but each of them looked very, very, very good, and I feel like he's gonna slowly but surely give him some more playing time throughout the season. Speaking of running backs, you had James White, who was nicked up at time, but he appeared to come back to the game. He stayed out there. He left again. He came back. So there's definitely something there, but nothing too serious where it just kept him out of the game. It was good to see. It was good to see him come back in the game after he had left with what appeared to be a leg injury. But the running game is going to pick up. I feel just over the season. It's not. I don't think it's going to be as bad as we saw last season. I feel like at least if we keep a healthy O line, yeah, this running game is going to pick up over the season. It's going to make it hard for teams to stop it because now not only do they have to worry about these running backs and worrying about the O line, they have to worry about Cam Newton now coming out of the backfield, which just adds a more just more of a dynamic to this running game, which should be already good behind that O line, which also looked pretty good, except for the I would say the few sacks that Cam Newton took, but I feel like that was mostly on Cam's side of the blame in terms of like play recognition. I mean, if you see that many people out on the line, if you see that many people lined up and it's looking like they're about to rush you, it's looking like it's a blitz, then you change the play. If it's looking like a blitz, then go ahead and change the play. All those people on the line, you don't have enough offensive linemen to stop that. Go ahead, change the play, get out of that. Don't take an unnecessary sack. But I mean, it is what it is. Moving on to the receivers, it was pretty much again what I expected. I mean, Julian Edelman, he led the receivers. He led the receiving room with N'Keal Harry not too far behind him, but not a lot of like big production in terms of the receiver room, which is something that we're gonna have to keep an eye on. Like I said before in the prediction video, Bill Belichick is probably gonna have to go out there and get him a guy, preferably a big name guy, who will be able to help out this offense, or somebody maybe like a Gunnar Olszewski can come back in about 2 weeks. I know he has to sit out the 3 weeks, on it because he's on injury reserve, and he has to sit out that 3 weeks. But hopefully he can come back in time for week 4 and help out in terms of the receiving game, because what we saw wasn't very impressive. I mean, we saw Ryan Izzo catch some balls, and I think that's about as much action as I've seen Ryan Izzo ever get in a game. But I mean, you see that the receiver room is a work in progress, and I'm trying to be as nice as I can about it. But it's definitely something that the fans are going to have to keep an eye on. But in terms of just overall production, they did all right. They did all right. Edelman was Edelman. N'Keal Harris, surprisingly, he had some pretty good moments in there where he was catching some high balls and churning for extra yards, dragging defenders. But there's also the whole safety with the ball issue, which cost us I believe 6 points, because he had the ball, he's running with it, and the defender made a good play. He made a good play, but I mean, you got to hang on to that ball. You can't let that ball fall into the back of the end zone, because you're basically just, that's basically a drive. That whole drive that you just had was all for nothing. It's pretty much the equivalent of the kicker going out there to get a chip shot and just missing wide right. Well, I'll get into that situation. I'll get into that a little later on, because I know you want to hear about that. But as far as the defense goes, I think if we're going to give any praise to anybody, we have to give praise to the defense. And I feel like this is something that everybody thought was going to happen with this first week, and probably with the weeks going on. The defense is pretty much going to have to carry this team if they don't improve a little bit more on offense, because we're going to go against some harder competition than we did today. So if the offense doesn't improve, then we're going to see ourselves relying on the defense, a lot more, possibly a lot more than today, but something similar to what we saw last season, where we had to rely on the defense to make plays and get the ball back into the offensive's hands and give them short fields and whatnot. But I mean, I'll give the defense credit. Adrian Phillips, phenomenal job for him. 9 tackles, 1 interception. Stephon Gilmore, of course, he had himself an interception. J.C. Jackson had himself an interception. So, I mean, the secondary was the secondary. The secondary is dominant. It's pretty much going to be the most dominant out of all the other teams in the league. Anytime I do a game prediction, I'm pretty much going to be choosing the Patriots secondary over anybody else because it's just that far. The competition is just that far. It's not even close in terms of the secondary. I mean, they just completely balled out. The the receivers on the other end could barely get any type of separation, and anytime they did, it was either because it was some kind of weak zone situation or something, or they just kind of fell off. But this secondary, man, it's something to watch this season. Gilmore could possibly, um, be in the running for that Defensive Player of the Year. He has to clean up those PIs though. He had 2 PIs in this game, and I mean, if he wants to put his team in the best position, he has to clean that issue up. You can't be accumulating PIs because you're just marching the opposition down the field, with easy yards. So that's something that that the Patriots, just as a whole, as the defense as a whole, is going to have to clean up. But yeah, overall they did pretty good. They did a lot better than I expected them to do in terms of the running game. I had my concerns with them having to go against Jordan Howard and Matt Breida, but they did a pretty good job considering who they had to go against. And Brian Coward, I'm trying to say that name correctly. He's a guy that you're gonna have to watch out for as the season goes along. He's looking very, very, very good in the middle of that defense. I figure he's going to probably get himself some more playing time, just like J.J. Taylor might find himself getting some more playing time. As far as just like sacks production and all that, it's nothing it's nothing like what we saw at the beginning of last year. We don't have those guys anymore. But in terms of sacks, the Patriots only had 1 sack coming from Derek Rivers, who sacked Ryan Fitzpatrick for a loss of 9 near the end of the game. It was a pretty good sack. He fought his way around the edge. Kept the motor on, and he pretty much got after the ball. Not to say that the other guys on the line weren't doing their job. Chase Winovich had a couple of tackles for losses. He was pretty much a playmaker in terms of just stopping the action at the line. Everybody really did a phenomenal job in terms of that regard. I was really, I was really surprised with the production that we got in terms of stopping the run. That was a big concern for me coming into this game. So to see them do as well as they did against who they were going against is something to look at. In terms of, I want to say special teams. In terms of special teams, not a lot to look at. Wasn't a lot of action in terms of, punt returns and things like that. A pretty slow game, but Jake Bailey, he did his thing. He downed about I want to say 3 balls inside the 20. Jake Bailey is looking sharp, which is, good to know. And we're going to have to see what Jake Bailey looks like coming through this season, seeing that he's once again handling kickoffs and punts. So we're going to have to watch that leg and see if it can hold up, throughout the season of him once again having to take over kickoff duties and punt duties. So that's something to keep an eye on. In terms of punt returners, there was at one point they had Demir Bird, about to return. Either it was a punt return or it was a kickoff return, but he was at one point he's about to return the ball, and I think J.C. Jackson got in his way and he ended up dropping the ball. I think that was his only muff punt. Muff punt, whatever. The next time they had him out there, he did a fair catch. He called it clean. Ball at 21, pretty much nice, but not a lot to speak of in terms of just return duties. But that was something that occurred during the game that I just wanted to put out there. In terms of kicking, now this is a concern that I feel like a lot of fans are going to be paying attention to. And it's just sad to see because that was one position that we didn't have to worry about for a very long time because it was just consistent in terms of going from Vinatieri to going to Goskowski, and just throughout those years, we never really had to worry about that position because it just seemed like whatever it was, field goal attempt or the extra point, it just seemed like it was just automatic. So it was just something that we didn't really have to worry about. But with Nick Folk, I mean, he has his moments where he's pretty solid, and then he has his moments where he's Nick Folk. And today was one of those days. He got his extra points. He nailed his extra points. I said in the prediction he was 100% on his extra points. He did that. He did that. Cool. That's one thing that we don't really have to worry about. But the field goals, this was not a hard field goal. It had to been at least like 40 something yards as far as like the attempt, and it just whiffed wide right. Like it just seemed like it didn't even have a chance, and you couldn't blame it on the wind or anything, any factors like that. Wasn't tipped, nothing like that. It was a good hold. He just missed the kick and missed it wide right. So that's definitely going to be something that we're going to have to look at, because there are going to be instances in the game where we're going to possibly need that 3 to either tie it up or take the lead, or just find something to get ourselves back in the game. And if he's missing what I would consider just chip shots, then he's it's something that you're gonna have to look at. Now, as far as Justin Rochweiser goes, we don't know what his status is, but if Nick Folk keeps this up, with missing these kicks, missing these field goals, then they might want to find a way to pull him from the practice squad and maybe put him on that active 53, because if this trend continues, that could be the direction that we see ourselves going in. Yeah, but yeah, it's just it was a good win for what it was, but there's a lot of things that have to get cleaned up, and it's just only week 1. There's even some guys that we expected to see out there that weren't out there, like names like Josh Uche, who should give a lot to this pass rush. Names like Dalton King, who should add some more, firepower to the offense. It's a lot of factors, that still have to unravel. It's only week 1. It's basically the preseason, because of the absence of a preseason. We're pretty much using this time as a preseason. I know they like to always talk about the Patriots using the first 4 weeks as the preseason, but that was with preseason. Now, we didn't have a preseason, so now we're basically using this week in the next 3 weeks, possibly 5 weeks, as the preseason. And I feel like a lot of teams are doing that today. It was not the cleanest of football, but it was a good result at the end of the day. The Patriots get the dub, and we get to move forward with the 1-0 record. So it puts people at ease in terms of is this team going to be able to deliver? And I think we got to see a little bit of that today. The offense definitely looked a lot smoother in terms of what we saw from last year. In terms of just having Cam Newton's ability to take off on a 3-6 situation. Brady, unless it's just dire, Brady was never really doing that. He was going to look for somebody to get open. If nobody got open, he was going to throw it away, or the defender was going to get back there and he was going to have to take that sack. But now you got somebody like Cam Newton, who on a 3rd and 6 situation, if he sees man coverage and he sees everybody's covered, he can just take off, just like that. 75 yards rushing. Tom Brady, as great as Tom Brady is, he's the GOAT. Tom Brady wasn't doing any 75 rushing yard games. That's not his style. But now we got somebody who brings that to the team, and also the ability to pass the ball. And speaking of passing, he looked pretty clean on that as well. I thought we were going to see some kind of shaky throws, maybe some missed throws, some overthrows, maybe, but he looked pretty clean as far as throwing the football. No turnovers, nothing like that. I mean, he played a pretty clean game. So, a lot of good things to I feel to expect coming from Cam Newton. But that's all that I have for this game. I think next game we have the Seahawks, who look pretty good today going against the Falcons. I mean, you want to talk about a beating, but yeah, the Patriots will be going against the Seahawks, and like always, I'm gonna do a game prediction video on that, and after the game, we'll do the post review and wrap it up from there. But until next time, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm out.